Hello, foolish mortals. It's time to beware. This is Skincare with a Scare. I'll read creepy stories and give my skin flair. Scares and skincare. It's the perfect pair. Welcome back to my second episode of Skincare with a Scare, where I touch my face and read scary stories. If this is something you're interested in, I think you should subscribe. It's free. You can come and go as you please. Like, you're allowed to do whatever you want. I will just get right into it. So today I'm going to be reading off the Reddit thread Scary Stories. I feel as if I'm still figuring out Reddit, so don't come for me. I've been a Reddit girly for a while. Like I know, I understand the premise of how it works, but I think like finding content, like this is a learning process. This is only my second episode, right? It's not gonna be perfect. Yeah, I'm working with Reddit. Reddit's working with me. I'm Googling best ways to use Reddit. So if you have any tips or tricks, comment down below and let me know. Because one thing about me, I'm always willing to learn. I never want to be an old dog who can't learn new tricks. Now this thread, scary stories, you know, some of them say real, some of them are not clearly, but clearly just stories. Obviously it's the Reddit scary stories, but some of these I read and I go, I think this is real, and I'm scared. I don't know, I'm very fortunate. I have not had a life full of real scare. You know, I partake from afar, because on my TV or my screen I can go boop and I can turn it off. But these people couldn't turn it off. Spooky. Oh, it's in my eye. Okay, let me do a quick rinse and then we'll get right into the first story. I'm clean. The first story is titled, I'm a police officer that quit his job after a paranormal experience. This is uploaded by The Bat Belfry. I'm not a superstitious person. I didn't believe in ghosts or demons until now. Yeah, stuff happens that can't be explained, but I want you all to know that it took more than a couple of flying spoons or a door opening on its own to scare me out of my job. Since the department didn't find any reason to keep this police report confidential, I will now detail you everything I can on what happened on the scariest night of my life. We had just received word from dispatch to check out a noise complaint in a small neighborhood whose name I will not disclose for their privacy. It was me and my partner, let's call him Paul, and I will go by Mike. We arrived sometime after midnight. The street is dead. Everyone is asleep at this point. We park our patrol car in front of the aforementioned house and exit the vehicle. We knock on the door and let our presence known. Police, is anyone home? A little girl, 8 to 10 in appearance, opens the door and peeks through the gap. Hey, I crouched to make myself less intimidating. Is your parent or guardian home? She shakes her head. My first thought was that she probably had the TV a little too high and woke up the neighbors. But before I could tell her to stay inside and lock the doors then part, I heard the sound of crashing silverware coming from what I presumed to be the kitchen. The entire house was pitch black. The girl answering the door and shaking her head let me know that she was alone, which makes whoever made that noise an intruder, as far as it concerned me. I asked the girl to step outside and turned to Paul. Paul, why don't you give her one of those lollipops you like to suck on when you're nervous? Paul gave me a cold stare as the girl giggled. They went to go wait by the car as I slowly pushed the door all the way open. Police, if there's anyone in this house, let yourself be known. Without a warrant, I had no right to enter the building. I tried my best to spot whoever made the noise, but it's too dark to see. Just any sign of a threat, and I would be justified to search the house. But nothing. I left the door open and headed back towards Paul and the girl. Hey again. I don't think we introduced ourselves. I'm Officer Mike. This is my partner, Paul. If I may ask, what's your name? Maribel. That's a pretty name. So, Maribel, again, if I may ask, where is your family? As soon as I had finished my sentence, the TV in the living room turned on, volume fully up. Me and Paul quickly turned in surprise and could see the television playing static from outside. We put Maribel in the back seat of the patrol car for her safety, as no civilians were allowed to sit in the front seat. We then, against our better judgment, entered the house. We tried every switch in the house, but no lights came on. While wandering through the house cautiously, I would catch a person standing in the mirrors. I thought it was Paul, but every time I looked behind me, Paul was nowhere to be found. As I returned to the front door along with Paul, we both jumped as running footsteps echoed down the hall. We detached our firearms and aimed it at the source. The footsteps got louder and closer, but no one ever appeared physically. Lamps, chairs, and other stuff started getting thrown around by an invisible force as the footsteps reached us. We sprinted out of the house and waited by the front yard. The footsteps seemed to stop, followed by the police siren that went off. I ran to the car and silenced the siren. I looked back at Paul, who seemed shocked. You all right, Paul? He takes a lollipop out of its package and puts it in his mouth. Yep. I opened the rear door and checked up on Maribel. You okay? She nodded her head, so I walked back to Paul. I don't know what to make of this, he said. Yeah, me neither. No, seriously, ignore the running invisible man that knocked everything down for a second. All the family photos, pictures on the wall, He points to Maribel. She's not in any of them. So what are you thinking? The footsteps led outside. The siren goes off. There's a million buttons in that car. What are the chances? Paul, are you trying to tell me that Maribel is haunted? How do you explain what we just saw? I'm sure there's an explanation. The TV turns on when Maribel's outside, prompting us to check it out. Someone or something shows up in the mirror but ducks away. I remember wanting to shut him up. Not because he wasn't making any sense, but because he was. I know you've seen it. It was prowling around. Then it runs outside and gets in the car. Tries all the buttons. I think a ghost is trying to get to the girl. I just stood there, not sure what to say, until Paul decided to start walking back towards the house. Paul, what are you doing? It only shows up in the mirrors. That's how we find it. I followed him inside and watched as he takes a book from the counter and breaks the nearest mirror. What's the matter with you? That's someone's property. He takes the shard and hands another one to me. It's not every day you get to arrest a ghost. We aimed our flashlights all over the house, waiting for something to appear in the broken glass. I recall praying to God Almighty to not let anything show up, but it did. I panicked as it swung its red, bony arm at my back. It ripped right through my uniform, causing me to fall forward. I dropped the glass, which broke into smaller chunks. It continued clawing at my shirt and flesh, but stopped when Paul opened fire. I heard it screech, fading as Paul helped me up. We both then hurried back outside to find Maribel missing from the back seat. It was difficult explaining what happened to the department without sounding like nut jobs. The police cameras, who we were betting on to prove our stories, had shut off the moment we entered the house. The thing, whatever it was, must have turned off the cameras while we were unaware. The only part of our story that the police captain took seriously was the girl, Maribel. The captain brought up the missing person report and asked us if this was the girl we saw. It was. It had just been a few days since I gave up the badge to save whatever little pride I could spare. I just ask whoever reads this, and to whomever it may reach, the next time a door opens on its own, or things move by themselves in your home, check the mirrors. I have to wash this off my face before I comment. Hold on. I think what makes that so spooky, I mean, right, you see a little girl in this house alone, like, did the ghost kidnap her? I don't know. But is the, what did it say? I panicked as it swung its red, bony arm at my back. I couldn't handle it. I would also, I think, have quit my job. I couldn't have handled it. I could not have handled it. And then the poor little girl, she's gone. Where's Maribel? What's also so compelling, I think, about this story is that this was posted 14 hours ago and the account was created like a few days ago. So, like, when I see that, I'm like, oh, this is real. This is what we're doing next. Okay. Smells nice. I also wonder, what did Paul do? Did Paul stay on the force? Did he also quit with Mike? Like, I don't know. I think I would quit. I hope they find that little girl. Maribel, girl, I'm thinking about you. I'm like looking in a mirror now and I'm like, better not. I also wonder why they broke the mirror. Was it to like be able to cover more ground? Was it like all over the floor? I don't know why they broke the mirror. Were they like walking like this? Like looking behind them? Or was it all over the ground and they're just like looking down trying to, I don't know. Anyways, that's the police officer who quit his job because of a paranormal experience. The next story is Man on the Other Side of the Street, written by Mr. Center of the Universe. I've been delivering fast food for 6 months now. It's not the best job in the world, but it allows me to save some money to move out of my unsupportive parents' place. And it's easy enough. Pick up a bag, drop it off, and repeat until your shift's over. No real thinking required. Most people don't even answer the door. They just let you leave the food on the front. Send a quick thank you text and you're on your way. But about a month ago, I started noticing something weird during my late night runs. It wasn't anything big at first, just a guy standing across the street whenever I'd park. At first I thought it was just another person out for a walk. There are plenty of those around. But then I realized it was always the same guy in the same spot, just standing there, watching. I'm not talking once or twice. This happened every shift. Always at different locations, but there he was, across the street, just standing there, staring. He never moved, not toward me, not away, just stood there. I'd go do the delivery, get back in my car, and then when I drove off, he'd still be standing there in the same place, watching me leave. I didn't want to think too much about it. You see all kinds of weird stuff when you work late nights, and you learn pretty quickly the less you notice, the better. But after a week of this, it got under my skin. I started looking for him at every stop, expecting him to be somewhere in the scene, and he always was. One night I was doing a delivery in the suburbs, one of those quiet neighborhoods where the only sound you hear is your own footsteps. It was just past midnight and I was carrying the bag of burgers and fries. Oh, that sounds so good. I think I'm gonna get a burger after this. Anyways, I was carrying a bag of burgers and fries to a small house on the corner of Maple and 7th. As I got out of the car, I looked across the street and sure enough, There he was. Same guy, same dark clothes, standing on the sidewalk across from me, staring. I tried to ignore him. I walked up to the house and dropped the bag at the door like usual. I turned around and I caught movement from the corner of my eye. He hadn't moved, but something about him seemed closer. I blinked, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. When I got back in the car, I checked the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, but now his face was clearer under the streetlight. Blood red crosses were painted on his skin. And those eyes, they were like holes, hollow, unfocused, but still somehow locked on me, making floods of shame wash over my unconscious. I drove off quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look back. My boyfriend and I decided to spend the night together at his, enjoying a rare evening of relaxation. He's been incredibly supportive, especially since I've been working so much and saving up to move out of my parents' place. I've been waiting for the right time to find our own space, where we can be ourselves without hiding or sneaking around. That night we were talking about my plans, and I mentioned the strange guy who kept appearing. I was hoping sharing it with him would help me process it better. He listened attentively and tried to reassure me it was probably just a coincidence, or a freak who stayed up in the late hours, like me. I felt a little bit better after talking to him, but the uneasy feeling never quite went away. The next night, the same thing happened, but this time it was worse. I was delivering to an apartment complex on the edge of town. I parked by the entrance, grabbed the bag of chicken nuggets, and as soon as I stepped out, I saw him, not across the street this time, but on the same sidewalk, standing under a flickering street lamp. He was closer. Too close. I hurried through the delivery, not caring about making sure everything was perfect, and I rushed back to my car. I locked the doors the second I got inside. I didn't dare look up until I was driving away. When I did, he was gone. I should have stopped working nights then and there, but money's tight and the late night shifts pay better, and let's be real, I need every bit of it. It's not just about keeping my head above water. It's about getting out, getting away from my parents, their small minds, their small house, their small religious town. I don't talk about it much, but I've been putting every spare penny aside, saving for that perfect moment when I can finally move out for good. Get a place of my own, a place where I don't have to hide every part of myself, or I don't have to sneak around and pretend I'm someone I'm not. When I discuss the man stalking me with my boyfriend, he thinks the reason I keep the late night shifts is just about money, but it's more than that. It's my freedom. But a few nights ago, something happened that I can't explain away. I was out on my last delivery of the night in a nice and conservative neighborhood where the streets were mostly empty after dark. It was a giant house with a gate and a long driveway. I parked at the end, grabbed the Indian takeaway, and started walking up to the house. Halfway there, I froze. He was inside the gate, not across the street, not on the sidewalk, but right there, just standing next to a tree at the edge of the property, watching me. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but I forced myself to push past him. I made the delivery, dropped the food on the porch, and practically sprinted back to my car. I didn't even care if the guy was right there. I just wanted to get away to safety. As soon as I got in the car, I locked the doors and stared straight ahead, not daring to look around. My hands were shaking as I put the car in reverse. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my own number. Don't turn around. I felt the blood drain from my face. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles were white. Another buzz. He's behind you. I couldn't help it. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. But when I looked forward again, I nearly screamed. He was standing in front of my car, just outside of the gate, his lips forming inaudible words, his hands stretched out towards the sky, fingers splayed, palms up as if offering me to something higher, something far beyond my understanding. His face, painted with those red crosses, twisted in desperation as if he was pleading for himself or me. His lips moved faster, fervently, but the words wouldn't reach me. His eyes locked onto mine. The realization struck me hard, making my breath catch. He wasn't just standing there. He was performing some sort of ritual, a frantic prayer that turned the space between us into both a sacred ground and a fire pit. I don't know how I managed to drive away without crashing. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was home. I ran inside, locked every door and window, and sat in the dark, shaking. The messages haven't stopped. Even though I've switched to day shifts only and no longer see him, every night I get a text from my own number. They're always short and simple, but they all mean the same thing. He's still watching. And earlier today, when I parked outside of my parents' house after another long shift, I got one more. Let me in. I don't know what's going to be the end of this. I don't know how to stop who or what he is, but I do know one thing. If you ever see a man standing across the street from you, watching, don't ignore him. And whatever you do, don't let him in. You know, I started filming a little earlier today, but you know, I still am looking behind me. I don't know. I think I would not let it get that far. First time I saw, no, cause this person mentions it a few times. They're like, it was a bunch of times. They were always on the other side of the street. They were always over there. I give it 3 times. No, 4. I see the same person 4 times. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's not a burger, it's a wrap. I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. Beautiful storytelling. But see, the way that it ended, it also ended like the other one. So maybe they're not real? Maybe they are? I don't know. Comment down below. Or do you think these stories are real? Or are people just really good storytellers? I myself, I don't think I'm a writer. I love to indulge. I love to take them in. I love to process and to read. But I don't know. This has the classic tellings of like every movie ever, every scary movie ever. You know, this person's doing something, they notice it, they try and tell someone they love because they're supposed to listen to them, and it's always like, it's just some dude. Just keep working. We need the money. Oh, that's the thing, like, you you need money. I get it. And sometimes you gotta work shit jobs and do shit things because you have to survive. Oh man. But also like the crosses, like what the fuck? What was the ritual? What was the reason? I don't know. Shiny. Look, they're pumpkins. Okay, so our next story is called When I Was 8 years old, I Thought My House Was Haunted. The truth is much scarier. I was 8 years old the last time I saw my mother. We lived in a somewhat big house out on the countryside, a decent drive from the nearest towns and cities. Look at how cute, it's a little pumpkin. Okay, I'm doing this. One night, I heard cries and screams coming from the walls. I yelled for my mom, who burst in worried. The voices didn't stop, but my mom didn't seem to notice. She banged on the walls and ordered the voices to stop and to let me sleep. They did as she asked. 3 nights after, I got in the shower and turned on the water. Blood. Boiling hot blood spit out of the shower head. I screamed as it slowly burned my face and body. My mother pulled me out quickly and dried me off with a towel. The towel turned red as she wiped away the blood all over me. A week later, I went back into the bathroom to brush my teeth. The light bulb overhead began to flicker, and in the quick instance, the room was dark. I saw a man staring back at me through the mirror. He looked pale and skinny, as if he hadn't eaten in days. The light stopped flickering, and I almost played it off as an illusion until the bloody handprint appeared on the mirror. It was the last weekend before school starts. I laid in my bed and must have snoozed off for a good few minutes to half an hour when my closet door opened. I think things in the closet, that's fucked up. Okay. Inside stood a woman, pale and skinny, like the man in the mirror. I didn't know what I was seeing at first from how dark it was, but it became more clear once the woman rushed to my bed and began to strangle me. Her cold grip tightened as she accused me of killing her husband. So my mom ran in with an axe in hand and swung it at the woman. The woman's head, whoa. My gosh. The woman's head came completely off and landed on my lap. That's just wild. I'm not laughing, because that's just wild. I screamed in absolute fear as my mom told me to hush. It's time I showed you something, I remember her saying. She took my hand and escorted me into my closet. She led me through a narrow tunnel that connected to every room in the house behind the walls. My memory on everything I saw is still fuzzy. Maybe I chose to forget how horrifying the sights were. I do remember, however, following my mother into the basement. Not our primary basement, but another one hidden and tucked underneath the first. Her exact words I'd rather not repeat. Just know that she was very disappointed in me and that I should have kept quiet like a good boy. I don't know why. If there is a why. She began to bite into my neck, then my shoulder. She trailed her teeth down my arm, ripping away as much flesh as she could hold in her mouth. What am I reading? I cried and pleaded with her, but she wouldn't listen. In a movie, in this exact moment, someone would burst through the door at the last second to save me. Maybe a cop, perhaps a relative, a friend. The only reason I live to tell my story is because, for whatever reason, in that twisted, psychotic mind my mother had, whatever little motherly love and instinct she held on to kicked in. She let go, apologizing in a calm manner. She left me laying on the ground as I could no longer scream, and instead gasped for air as I stared at the open wound she gave me. She snatched the phone from the wall and called 911. I know it was 911 because she told whoever answered the phone everything, and everybody she'd killed, and how I was now lying on the floor on the verge of death, and that if they didn't arrive in 20 minutes, she'd put me out of my misery. Cops showed up some 15 minutes later and raided the house. They took my mother into custody and rushed me to the hospital. I didn't get to hear the report on her until I was finally in my 20s. Even with all the details, I still didn't get what the purpose was. Why did she do all of that? The voices in the wall belonged to people she buried inside, using their skin as wallpaper. Yeah, I really thought the house was gonna be haunted. All right. The blood in the shower came from the bleeding bodies that she used to fix the plumbing. It was hot because my mother thought if she left the water boiling, they would disintegrate. Okay, let me just take these off real quick while I finish this. The mirror was two-way, with the inside looking into the restroom. The The flickering light was just a standard faulty light bulb. Oh, okay. So the light bulb was the one, okay, great. I'm a little confused with this one. A little good. Well, let's finish. The woman that came out of my closet went nuts after potential weeks of little to no nutrition. She attacked me thinking I was aware and helping my mother. To this day, I don't know what was going on in my mother's head. The cops can't find any logical explanation for such drastic crimes. I do tell myself that the house was haunted and she was possessed to move on with my life. It's the only thing I can really do. I have questions. I think this one is a story. I don't think it's, well, let's break it down. So the light flickering, the light bulb was a standard faulty light bulb. So could this, I think it's a boy, because the mom said to be a good little boy. Could this boy always look through the mirror? Or was it because of the faulty light bulb that flickered off, he could then look through it and that's when he saw the old man? Or could this boy always look through the mirror and the flickered light bulb really had nothing to do with it, right? Also, this mother is tripping. It takes a lot of time to plaster the wall with skin, I'm assuming. I've never done that. I have no desire to do that. But like I hung up wallpaper with my sister the last time I was home and that took hours. Also, yeah, what was the motive? Also, how'd she get all these people? I don't know. I mean, spooky, scary for sure. But like, where did she get the finances to do this? I'm assuming she had no job. You know what this story reminds me of? You know that movie? Oh, I'm gonna put you on something. People Under the Stairs. That little story reminds me of People Under the Stairs. And you know what? That movie is good. That movie is really good. It came out in 1991. I think it was ahead of its time. I think if it came out today, I think Jordan Peele should make a remake. Let me be in it somehow, hey. But wow, that just clicked. That story reminds me of People Under the Stairs. If you've seen it, great movie. I think I've only seen it once or twice, and that was a couple of years ago, but I thought it was a really good movie, and I think it should get more buzz. But yeah, that story reminds me of People Under the Stairs. Watch People Under the Stairs. Let me know what you think about it. And that story was nuts. Poor child, poor person. That is hard. That's hard. I'm done with my skincare, and I'm gonna go get a burger with fries because that was talked about in one of our stories. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified anytime I post. And I will see you here next time. As always, stay spooky, my friends. Sweet. So I've done like real ghost stories. I've done scary stories. Is there anything that you would recommend? Any Reddit threads? Any topics? Scary topics, spooky topics you would like me to read on Reddit? Comment down below, let me know. Okay, you all have a great night, and I watch People Under the Stairs. That's all I can say. Okay, bye.